And I'm back, and she's sleeping on my lap. So thank you so much, those of you that tuned in to the earlier broadcast of day 19. And we had a bit of background static, to put it nicely. So thank you for your patience, and thank you for going ahead and joining back in. It's never my intent to have you sit there while my child is in a temper tantrum. But as you can see, she just needed a nap, and now she's napping on me. But thank you so much for coming on back in. So we are, to recap, we are doing day 19. Yeah, she's got a big mess of hair, just like her mama. On day 19 of 31 Days to Love Your Lettering, and this week we're talking about beginning brush lettering. And today, to get started, she takes no official naps. I would love it if she did take official naps, but she doesn't. Oh, thank you, Amanda. I appreciate that. It bothers me, though, so if it bothers me, then I know that there's at least one other person out there who it would be a distraction to them, too, especially when it's just that low kind of covering over everything. So I don't know if anyone new has jumped on. My name is Lisa. I blog at CreativLEI.com, looking at life creatively, and we're currently in the third week, I think the third full week, so almost fourth week of 31 Days to Love Your Lettering, and we are getting started with basic brush lettering. And in order to start that today, we're actually going to start with pencil. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera and get us back on track. So of course now I'm doing everything one-handed, so it might be a little bit slower. So there was the sample that I have, and I'm going to go ahead and flip over to my current notebook so that you guys can see. And let me work on the angles here a little bit. Alright, so if you needed more information, so here we are. CreativLEI.com/loveyourlettering will bring you a little bit about what lettering looks like on my site. I can be found at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm at CreativLEI, all those places, /CreativLEI on Facebook. On Pinterest, I'm Creatively Made, and I do keep a board for penmanship and lettering, as well as a board of quotes and quips and pens and things. And that's where I kind of keep track of all the things that help me in my lettering journey, so hopefully they will help you as well. And if you're wondering what supplies we've used throughout this series, you can find the information on this post, creatively.com/loveyourlettering supplies. That post was my introduction to the 31 days, or kind of pooling my audience to see if that was something that they'd be interested in. And it has like this big long list of all the different supplies that I use throughout the month. But I do not want anyone to break their budget. Certainly add the supplies that make sense to you. And don't feel like you need to have it all. You can start this entire series with just a couple pencils and a couple of plain, your favorite pen and some grid paper. And we use the grid paper just because then we don't have to draw in lettering guides. We can just use both the vertical and horizontal lines of the grid to help us get on track. So later this week I'll be using the brush pens, and my favorites currently, and actually for quite a while now, are the Tombow Fudenosuke brush pens. And these are disposable pocket brush pens that are nylon brushes. There is a soft tip and a hard tip. And really the difference on that is the makeup of that brush nib. The soft tip, thank you. The soft tip is just a soft nylon that's very responsive to the pressure that you apply with your hand. And the hard tip is just a bit more rigid. You just got yours. That's awesome. Thank you. It's a bit more rigid, so it's a higher contrast between that fine upstroke and that broad downstroke. So to get started, we're actually going to use a pencil, and I'm using a Tombow drawing pencil, and this is a B pencil. So the way pencils go, you may have just a regular number 2 at home, and that will work just fine to get started on this method or technique. Our standard number 2 pencils are sort of the equivalent of an HB pencil, and that just refers to the softness of that graphite. So the B pencil is just a tad softer than an HB would be. And the reason why I like the mono pencils, they're just really a very soft and good flowing graphite with none of those waxy bits that kind of scratch up your paper. Okay, so our main thing to know when we're getting started with brush lettering is to learn how to vary the pressure on the strokes. So we've talked about different strokes when we started with our regular handwriting and when we started with the calligraphy pen. They are the components that make up our alphabet. So we have some strokes that go down and some strokes that go up. And so with brush lettering, the down strokes are going to have great pressure and the upstrokes are going to have a release of that pressure. And so we end up having these dark lines and these light lines with pencil. And one was more broad and the other is more fine. I'll zoom in just a tad for you so you can see, maybe. Kind of hard one-handed, so you can sort of see when I go down, it's dark, and when I come up, it's light. So I have scribbled a little bit with my pencil to get some of the point gone, and now it's actually got a bit of a bias from my pencil grip. So you'll want to just pay attention to that. If you just dull that tip a little bit, you'll be able to see those up and down strokes a little bit more. And so for today's lesson, we're going to go over some of the basic strokes again using the pencil. And so our concentration is going to be on varying the pressure during our strokes. So when we go up, we're going to be barely touching the lead or the graphite to the paper. And when we come down, we're really going to put some pressure down on that. I'm going to turn it and go up again, light, and down I'm going to add some pressure. So you're releasing and going up. And it does not have to be a continuous line, because actually when we do brush lettering, it's all the different strokes are going to come together. We're not going to write in cursive. Although sometimes when we go fast, you tend to go and do that. So these are, you know, 2 strokes. We come down, release, go up, down, release, up. Okay, so, and don't worry so much about whether they're perfectly spaced apart or perfectly hitting the baseline or the X line, because what you're trying to train yourself is to vary that pressure. So go slowly and very mindfully release the pressure up, apply the pressure down. Release it up and apply it down. So we've got our waves there. And now the next thing to do is to make an overhand, so where we're going over and down, and we're going to do some squiggles that way. I'm sure that there's a technical term, but you'll learn them as squiggles from me. So I'm going to come up, and then I'm going to turn down, and then I'm going to loop up and go down and loop up, and I'm going to go down again, loop up, down, up, down, up, down. And you can, let the pencil go for whatever feels natural. Like if you want to continue in a line, but you may need to release, and then you're going to pick it back up, come down again. So I'm going to keep comfort in mind, because if you're gripping too tightly and you're trying to go too far, you're going to make your hand cramp, and this will not be enjoyable. So you want to kind of keep a pace that's workable. Now we're going to go underhand. So I'm going to start down and loop up, down, up, down, up, down. And sometimes you'll end up going so lightly that you actually lift off the page, and that's not uncommon, and it's something that as a letterer or calligrapher, you would just go back over and fix that anyway. So don't worry about starting over if you don't make a continuous line, because it's pretty forgiving. Okay. Now I'll also do some zigzags that are more straight lines. So I'm going to go up, come down, up, come down, up, down. And I'm coming down on the vertical. You can make them diagonal as well. It's just training yourself to apply that pressure anytime you're making that downward motion, whether it's straight down or on the diagonal, okay? And the same thing for an upstroke. It's either going to go straight up or it's going to come up at a diagonal, but anytime your hand goes up, it's going to be with very little pressure, and anytime your hand comes down, you're going to be applying some pressure. Alright, so now you can combine a few of the elements. So instead of making the overhand and underhand loops, I'm going to make kind of humps and valleys. I guess that's, again, not a technical term, but it works. It identifies it pretty well. So as you can see, it forms our M. That's those arches. Okay. Now I'm gonna flip it. Go up, down, up, down, up. So it's not just one continuous stroke. I do from the down to the up, I will often make that continuous. But after these apparent connections, yeah, I am lefty, actually. I usually try to, and I can't demonstrate right-handed today because the little one is in my right hand. But previous weeks I have kind of demonstrated at least the grip for both. And when you're using pencil, it's pretty much either one will work. So we can do all those down strokes here. It can be our U, it could be our T. But you see, I'm just making kind of that downstroke and the exit up, and then making that next one is its own. So they look like they're continuous or connecting, but really they are separate strokes. Okay. So once you start to get the hand of doing doing the strokes and different components with that light up and heavier or more pressure down, you can do just a regular print alphabet and concentrate on making the heavy pressure on the down and then a light up. I'll just do a print. The O would be that down and up. you can start it here, light, and then on the spine come down with pressure. T. The X can be a little bit tricky. A lot of times I will make this diagonal my downstroke, and now even though my pen is going to, or my pencil is going to come down, I do not like to cross two broad lines. So this one I would make a light line and maybe just weight towards the bottom. Because anytime, like in any of the lettering styles we've done thus far, kind of the rule of thumb is you can have thin cross thin, you can have thick cross thin, but when you have thick cross thick, it ends up looking kind of clunky. So even on that X, I'll usually play with it, and it will depend on which word I'm writing and where its position is, but I'll change. It's usually this one that I treat this with the weight of an upstroke, even though it is a downward motion. Y and Z. Okay, so like I said, this is a fairly short lesson, because all we're really concentrating on is, and that contrast is awful, that's our heavy down and our light up. Down, up, down, up. Yeah, it's a bit different. It kind of ends up being a rule breaker. I mean, I've crossed the broad or the both downstrokes. I just don't like the way it looks. And so that's kind of one of those letters that I will throw out what would be the basic natural rule, because visually I prefer when it's a light and a dark. So kind of, there are rules, but all these rules are flexible, because this is where it's, it's the discipline of penmanship, but it's also the creativity of art. So that's why we've learned some basic rules, but we learn where the artistic places to break or bend those rules are. So with that said, that kind of wraps up our pencil instruction for getting prepared to vary that pressure. Remember, your downs are going to be pressure applied, and our upstrokes are going to be a release of the pressure on the up. Is it equatorial even in pencil? Explain or ask me further. So there's going to be slight changes when we use the brush pen, but it's the main idea is getting familiar with that variation of a pressure applied down and a pressure released up. So whether you're in pencil or the pen. And some of your pens may react even if they're not a brush pen. So here is a 08 fine point pen from Zig, and so I can get I can go up and down a bit here. So this is not a brush pen, but when I slow down, oh, thank you. When I slow down and really focus on that downstroke, I can still get a little bit of variation between the up and the down. So it's really, learning to vary that pressure is going to change a little bit the way your handwriting looks no matter what tool you're using. So here's, a ballpoint pen. Let me see if I can zoom just a little bit. So even with the ballpoint pen, if I come up and down, I can still get some variation. Okay? So it's really, today's lesson is all about training your brain and your hand to think that thin up, thick down, thin up, thick down, or, you know, pressure down, release up, pressure down, release up. So, does anybody have any questions, or is there anything that you would like to see again before I hop off? Sorry. So, we made it through. So I'll be on again tonight around 9:30 p.m. Eastern, and we'll go through. It'll be the same demonstration, except it is usually a little more chatty throughout the demonstration, answering questions kind of as they come up. Thank you so much. So I expect that this week will be a little bit fun, like I said, because brush lettering being so popular right now, lots of people would like to learn the technique, and I think it's awesome because you really can apply the technique to whatever tool you're using, whether you're using a Crayola marker or a colored pencil or a ballpoint pen. When you start to make that intentional variation in pressure, you're going to see your letters change a bit. So that's the brush pens just kind of exaggerated a bit more. Where you're going to head out to find them. Okay, so like I said, the ones I recommend the most are the Tombow Fudonosukes because I find that they're very, very reliable, and for the price they're good. But if you need to get something this week and you can't find these in store, if you have a Michaels nearby, they carry, most of them carry the Pentel Feud Touch brush pen, or it's labeled as a sign pen, but it's specifically, I'm going to look for it to see if I can show you. All right, so I don't know if you can see. This is the Pentel sign pen, but it's the Feud brush. So the barrel of the pen is gray and sparkly. I like the soft one. I love the hard one, but I find that the hard one, it's going to feel awkward the first couple times you use it because it is a rigid brush and you're afraid to put pressure on it, but it can withstand the pressure. And I'll demonstrate both of them when I'm doing the lettering throughout the week. So I don't know if you can see this, but this tiny little soft brush pen ends up being very similar to the soft tip Tombow. And no, my Tombow is very worn down. This is one of my older ones. But they actually do have a very similar point. Welcome from Holland. It is awesome to have you here. Is it the 150? For the Pentel? If you're looking for the Pentel one at Michael's, mine says, no, the Tombow. Yes. The Tombows are 150, WS 150, it's WS TAC BH 150 for the hard tip and BS 150 for the soft tip. I know that Amazon sells a pack of both together, and it's under $7 if you have Prime shipping in the US. And if you are looking for the Pentel sign pen, the numbers that are marked on the pen are SES15N if you want to check a local Michaels. You have the BS. That's the soft tip. And I know someone's going to make fun of that one. So that is the soft tip. It's the dark gray or black barrel. If you have the dark blue or like navy blue barrel, that is the hard tip. And both of them are, I know, both of them are very usable. You'll just notice that you get that higher contrast between the fine upstroke and the heavier downstroke with the hard tip. But there's a learning curve to it to kind of learn how far you can push that rigid brush as opposed to the softer of the soft tip one. So if no one else has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and hop off. I will be, you have the TBS 250. Is that the dual brush pen? When did the alphabet, did I space 3 spaces? My alphabet, I did, the bowl of the letters were 2 boxes high, and the ascending parts and the descending parts were about a box and a half above or below the X height, if that helps at all. Hi, Carrie. We're just finishing up. We had kind of a rocky scope here today. I'll be on again at 9:30 Eastern, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, to do the same demonstration over again, but hopefully then I'll have both hands and it'll be a little easier. But if you have any questions when the broadcast has ended, I will be over on Facebook this evening. We have dance class and we're packing, but it's all good. I'll be around because this week is definitely one of my favorite ones. This week and then next week when we do some brushing with watercolors and stuff, we have lots of fun. So yeah, it's like we kind of get through the first 3 weeks of all this really basic and fun foundational lettering stuff, and now like we finally get to the fun pens. So, but I in all fairness, I like the calligraphy pen too because there's a lot of fun that you can do with that, and I've been chatting that maybe this summer we'll do some mini series with each pen, so that we can get some calligraphy pen love or calligraphy marker, to see some of the different alphabets that you can do with that, because it really is a lot of fun. But that will have to be after I'm moved and settled and boxes are unpacked and my new studio is set up. I'm getting a craft room studio, so there'll be more room to do some demonstrations. So thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon, especially those of you that came back after that first one. It was great to be able to do that demonstration for you. Again, I'll be on at 9:30 p.m. tonight. If I don't see you then, I'll see you tomorrow when we actually will start with the brush pen. And if you don't have your brush pen before tomorrow, please don't stress and join us live anyway, because you can continue this week with pencil. Pick up all the techniques with pencil, and then when you get to add the brush pen to your stash, add it then. But certainly, especially as you're learning about the different pressure, don't feel like you need to ruin the tips of your brand new brushes. I know that they're not super expensive, but it's still money that comes out of your budget, and I know you'll want to kind of reserve those pens for when you're feeling really confident. So build your confidence with pencil and move to brush pens as time and confidence allows. So anyway, I'll see you later on this evening. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.